Hi, I am RAUL ROA ESTILISTA.
Come with me to see the step-by-step of this long bob cut. My client's wish is to donate her hair, and that is why we have collected it in a braid. We are going to cut with a smooth scissors, preferably. The cut of this area, we are not going to do it straight. We start at the bottom and create a curve, making a concave cut, thus allowing the lengths to be kept on the sides. We also leave the hair a little longer, because later we are going to correct it and make the cut. This moment is magical for a stylist. Firstly, because of the confidence, and secondly, because of the face our client makes every time we cut his hair a lot. Even if they agree, it will always be impressive, and that is very beautiful. It brings a lot of magic. I love doing that. Of course, when the client wants it, of course. We section the entire upper part, as shown in the video and the image. The section at the top back ends at an angle. We also section the right rear area and the left rear area. And we only leave the area below to shorten. We section a wick vertically. We project it at 90 degrees, and with a cutting inclination of 45 degrees, we cut straight. And we create our guide wick. Immediately after, we section another wick, parallel to the previous one that we cut. We take it to the cutting point, maintaining the inclination, and cut in the same straight way. We keep repeating the same procedure. And the wick will converge where our initial guide wick is, which is in the center of the lower back of the head. This allows the initial wick that we cut, our guide wick, to be shorter. And the last wick that we cut will be longer, because it will have a greater displacement to the cutting point. Now we are going to start working on the opposite side. We section another wick in the same way. I take our cutting guide wick again, and we take it to the same point. Being careful to maintain the same elevation, the same projection, and the angle of cut. It is very important to take into account the number of wicks that we have selected on the right side. And thus cut the wicks exactly the same on the left side. In this way I make sure that the haircut is balanced in both sectors. In the previous videos of this type of long bob cut, I put a lot of emphasis on the posture and position of our bodies. Something that is impossible to do in videos. Because the idea is to clearly see how the cut is made. But we must always stand in front of our central guiding wick, so that all the hair on both sides converges to that cut point, so that the cut is completely balanced. Now what we do is outline the outer perimeter achieved of the structure that we have created. What we do is polish the cut on both sides. Now we select a wick to cut, diagonally following the parallel shape of the sectioning that we have previously carried out. And we are going to cut that wick that we have released, following the shape of the structure that the previous cut has given me. And we cut straight and diagonally, as we are seeing in the video and in the graph. We continue sectioning wicks to shorten. Also these wicks, diagonally. And we take them to the same cutting point, following the indications that we are enunciating. These wicks to be cut must be very fine. For two reasons: first, to be able to see where the cutting line goes, and to serve as a guide, so as not to cut more or less than what I should cut. And second, because every time I lower a wick to cut, it will be 1 or 2 or 3 millimeters longer. And this allows the end of the haircut to fit the head naturally. Someone told me I do that haircut much faster, and I don't need to do all those sections, and I do it faster. And I said, congratulations, I think it's excellent. We all work differently. But this is the technique that I use. It works very well for me, and the haircuts are beautiful. Of course, there are different styles. But obviously taking thin sections, working this way takes a bit more time. If you delay, you take your time, but the result is spectacular. And as I said, the position of our body must be in front of the section that we are cutting. I'm off to the side, and that might help to cut too much of the area that needs to be longer, by the same displacement of my body. On the other hand, if I am in the back, I can more calmly make the cut without fear of cutting the length of the sides. but I come back and tell them, with the idea that they see what I'm doing. Obviously I can't stand in front, because they would see my back. In addition, you can see that we started the arrangement of the wicks to be cut diagonally. But due to the curvature of the skull, we must adapt this sectioning. And we are going to begin to see the sectioned horizontally. We finish the last wick, doing it horizontally, but it must be little by little. We begin the sectioning diagonally, and this sectioning ends up being projected horizontally until reaching the last wick to cut. Very good. Now we start working on the opposite side, sectioning wicks also diagonally, and we are going to take them to the same point. It is very important that in this part, we have a lot of concentration. And you have to remember how we did the haircut in the first section. That is why it is so important. I'll come back and tell them. Sectioning fine strands, to be able to see exactly the cut line. You can also alternate, by cutting a wick, on the left side. And in that same line, section a wick, on the right side and cut. Alternate a wick, on one side, and a wick on the other side. And it can also work well. But keep in mind, when switching from one side to the other, keep the cutting position, on one side and on the other. To check the length on both sides, it is even and perfect. But this way, it is also calmer and you can concentrate. Both work fine, it's a matter of taste. And try which of the two techniques you identify with the most and feel better about. In fact, in this haircut, I am so relaxed that I am working sitting down. Which is another very good option. Because we last 8 or 12 hours working, standing up. Likewise, we have to look at how to take care of our health, and work from time to time sitting down. It is a very good habit that many stylists have to work sitting down. It's a matter of getting used to working like this. And it is very comfortable to work sitting down, because our body does not suffer so much and we also rest. Ready? Now we are going to continue with one of the sides of the head, where we are going to section a wick horizontally. That we are going to cut, following the cutting line diagonally. Always keeping the cut, which is shorter at the back of the head and longer in front. Since we cut it initially, what we are doing is polishing off the excess. Because we remember that we cut it concavely. This allows me to shape the long bob. And what I am doing is correcting the cut line that was created initially. And obviously polishing it and leaving the cut as it should be. So we are cutting minimum. That's why if I leave the cut very scanty when the braid was made, obviously I would have to raise the cut a lot in the nape area. Although this cut is very nice. When the hair on the lower back of the head is cut shorter, it looks very nice. That's why we left it a little longer, obviously to have hair to cut, but what we are cutting is the minimum. And on the opposite side, on the next side, we will also section the wicks horizontally. And we take them to cut to our cutting line that we bring diagonally. Continuing with the cut, which is shorter at the back of the head. And maintaining the inclination diagonally, and we cut straight. Also continuing with the recommendation of sectioning fine wicks. And the same thickness as on the other side, to always maintain balance. And keep the cutting angle. Now we are going to work the upper part, where we are going to section a wick around the entire contour of this upper part. And since we already have the base of the whole structure, we simply go down and comb the hair well and cut. Following the scheme of the structure that we already have. We continue selecting wicks parallel to the division of the upper part. And we are going to take them to cut. Guiding us by the length we have of the structure we have achieved. Since my client has a lot of hair, and her hair is very beautiful. When sectioning the fine wicks, as I told you at the beginning, the first layers will always be shorter. For the disposition that we have been bringing. And that will allow the hair to go inward naturally. To finish at the top, we section a line vertically. We comb the hair very well from the growth zone, and we take it to our cutting point. Following the length that we have been bringing from the structure of the cut, now we are going to focus on the crown of the head with a vertical line. And where are we going to get a wick that we project at 90 degrees? And we proceed to cut straight. to create light layers at the back of the head. This wick is also going to be my guide wick, where each of the wicks will converge, which I'm going to section, and we will cut at that point. We continue selecting wicks vertically. And what I do is move that wick to where I am. And I look for where the cutting line is, and it cuts straight. Continue to select wicks vertically. And I keep moving them to the opposite side. Where am I sectioning these wicks from? To keep the longest possible length of that wick at the central part. The central part, as we project it at 90 degrees, will be shorter. The other wicks that I take to cut, it is noted that they have a greater displacement. We can also appreciate it in the figure. And obviously, since the wicks have more displacement, the haircut on the sides will be longer. Look, every time I go to section a wick, I lose my cutting position. It is very important, because I have to section the wick vertically. But I recover my cutting position with the displacement of the wick that I am cutting. And cut straight, maintaining sectioning vertically. And I am going to move the wick to cut to that same point. We will continue working in the same way, repeating the same sectioning and the same displacement until finishing the cut of this part. Now we recover our central guide wick. For that we section the wick again vertically. We bring it to the point and correct the cutting line. We section another wick parallel to the guide wick. And we begin to move the wick so that it cuts to the opposite side from where I am, so that the wicks are longer. I keep sectioning wicks vertically. And I move the wick in the opposite direction to where I am, to achieve that wick remains with greater length. Because on the opposite side he moved the wicks towards me. And now I am doing the opposite. I have to move the wicks to the opposite side of my. That is why it is very important to be concentrated in the displacement that we have made on the opposite side. We have to do exactly the same displacement but opposite, to obtain a balance in the cut, and that the layers are balanced. The wicks are always sectioned vertically, adapting them to the curvature of the skull, back to front. And so I also move the wicks to cut them, and obviously maintaining the projection and inclination so as not to cut too much of the sides, achieving layers only at the back of the head. We will brush the hair. We already have the structure of the haircut completely dry, and we are going to proceed to give it texture. We will take wicks and comb them the opposite, and the smooth scissors will enter parallel to the direction of the hair to remove weight. We'll create small spaces to reduce volume to the hair without removing the length. This technique is called filtering, and it is in order to remove weight from the hair. I explain it very well in one of our videos that is on the YouTube channel. And the most beautiful thing is the smile of our client.